All right, YouTube, some of you were worried, especially the ethno-nationalists, I guess, among you, that my community was going to be basically burned into a pile of ashes because we were getting 100 refugees to resettle here. But that'll never actually happen. Less than 10 actually came. Loris has given up on the project, largely because of Trump. And this is another reason I wasn't particularly worried. The refugee program was probably going to be in hazard, probably cut anyway. So what would be the fucking point of worrying? They were talking about a time span of many months, and it wasn't clear that anybody was going to come here, honestly, over the course of its actual existence. Now, I'll say this again. No, I don't. If these people are actually Syrian, fleeing a war zone, I don't really have a problem with them. I look at it as it's fucking Obama's problem, ultimately. Obama's the one that fucked up Syria. Maybe he should take these families in under his wing, make him pay for it, because he's the one conducting all the drone strikes over there and stuff. But I mean, I'm not afraid of a bunch of Syrians. This is the U.S., we're armed, we actually can protest things, we actually have the ability to criticize religion. You go to Europe, you can't do that. Generally speaking, you get thrown in jail for being a bigot or whatever. In Germany, a bunch of Somalians beat someone in the street. That's okay. If that person throws a punch to defend themselves, oh, hideous bigot Nazi, not paying enough reparations, drag him off to the fucking death camp or something like that. So it wasn't a big worry, but what I was worried about, two things. I pointed this out. The first problem is that Loris never asked anyone. Loris is our mayor, Christopher Loris. And he's a jackass, honestly. Look around at the city of Rutland. We've got problems with drugs. We've got problems with decaying infrastructure. We can't even take care of the homeless in our own city. And yet Loris wants to pretend it's some great moral move to ignore the people that actually reside in his community, bring in more people that are going to need benefits, that are going to need care, that are going to need host families and training and all of this stuff, as though this is morality or something. Like he wanted to score brownie points, I guess, with people in the city of Rutland. It's just not happening. His popularity is in steep decline as a result of this. He won't be reelected, I predict. I've even thought about running against him myself. As far as name recognition goes, I wouldn't have any competition, I suppose. It'd be pretty funny. But no, Loris made a mistake there by not asking people's input. At the very least, he should have told people months ahead of time, said, I want to hear from the community what their concerns are. Let people speak at like town halls against it, instead of just having one friggin' meeting and then saying, well, screw you, we're doing it anyway. The second problem I had was the vetting process. I do not believe the federal government is vetting refugees properly. I am not going to take them at their word on that claim. They have offered no evidence that their vetting program is any good. As such, I have reason to believe it's no good, because otherwise they'd be more than happy to pony up evidence of the length and scope of their process. Obama would have been more than willing to do that if the vetting process were actually capable of discovering who was or was not actually Syrian, actually a militant. Those were my problems with it. In spirit, I have no problem with the concept of refugees. But in practice, I did have a problem with this whole piece of shit. Which is exactly what it is. Loris is a fool. Obama was a fool. Some people... This is Vermont. Rutland's a little more red than most parts of the state. But it is still Vermont. It's far left, generally speaking. Loris is goofy. I don't know what possessed him to think this was a good idea, and he had to have known. I think he just assumed Trump would never win. He had to have known that if Trump won, he'd probably make good on his promise. Yeah, we're not going to resettle these refugees. We're certainly not going to increase the flow, and sanctuary cities are going to get screwed with. Well, Loris is looking at this, probably worrying, oh, well, what if he determines that refugees are already here since we're shutting down the refugee program? What if that constitutes being a sanctuary city since these people are going to get, like, redeported or something? By the way, to any of the refugees here, I wouldn't deport them anyway. I'd properly vet them, as opposed to Obama's idiot process. Yeah, I'd properly vet these people a second time. And if they've done nothing wrong, if they're actually from Syria, if you've got some little kid from Syria, I don't really care if they settle here. It just doesn't matter to me. My problem is that some of these individuals that have come in under Obama probably aren't even from Syria. Many of them have probably never even seen Syria. They're Somalian, or they're Pakistani, or they're from Afghanistan, or someplace like that. Or Libyan, number one. Number two would be a slim minority of them. I'm sure that there are a few. In with the refugees, there are terrorists coming into this country through such a program. I'm sure the federal government has never in all of its existence created a program that was totally ironclad 100% effective. So there's some margin of error in there. You don't need a high margin of error. You're talking about tens of thousands of people. You only need one or two people to come in who are actually ISIS operatives who have managed to game the system somehow. Or they bribed some agent. Maybe maybe it's an inside job. Maybe they've got somebody in the vetting program itself who has the power to rubber stamp something, make it look official, just to infiltrate the country. Has anybody even thought of that possibility? A lot of people would say, oh, well, that could never happen. Well, you had like Snowden and stuff like that. You want to proclaim him to be like a Russian espionage agent. Well, I guess it's not actually that difficult to penetrate our agencies. So yeah, that would be a worry. I don't have any problem with the Syrian people. I feel sorry for Syria. I feel extremely sorry for the millions of people that Obama destroyed their lives. That's what I feel sorry for. At the same time, though, it's not my problem. I never supported his drone program. I never supported the Syrian civil war, which he helped to fund and prolong by money grubbing over there and fucking around with the FSA. I never supported it. That's Obama's problem. That's a problem for Obama and his fans. They're the ones that supported the warmongering that's gone on for the last 8 years in Libya, which spread ISIS there, in Syria, which spread ISIS there, in Iraq, that spread ISIS there. It wasn't just George W.'s problem. Yeah, he destabilized it. Al-Qaeda moves in. Lots of terrorism. Bad thing. Things begin to stabilize. He fucks around again, Obama does, and then ISIS comes in. Even Al-Qaeda's afraid of them, because they're just even more bloodthirsty. Al-Qaeda's turned into like mafia-like. They turned into a business entity half the time. They're barely even terrorists anymore. They're willing to work with the Western world just because they're so concerned about ISIS. The Taliban has said the same thing. That's how truly fucked up some of these groups are. I mean, Christ, and then you've got Loris ignoring the economic situation of Rutland. He comes out. He says, oh, well, this will be a boon to our economy. We've lost population, so we'll get more people. And yeah, but these people, they're not citizens. They're going to need job training. They're going to need, in many cases, remedial English. They're going to need host families. They're going to need handouts. It's going to be a years-long process, and I don't trust the federal government to vet them anyway. What possessed you to think that you were anything other than an elected individual? You are the mayor. You're not the dictator of Rutland County. You're the mayor of Rutland. What makes you think that you have the unilateral power to ignore all the citizens in the county, including surrounding areas? It's not just the city of Rutland, it's the surrounding areas that you have nothing to do with. You ignore them, you ignore the board that tells you, yeah, it's maybe not a good idea to do this because we got our own fucking problems. You're certainly ignoring all the homeless people that hang out outside of Walmart all the time. You're ignoring the drug problem that you've done absolutely butt-fuck nothing about. You ignore literally everything that's happening around here in order to fixate on 100 foreigners that haven't probably even been properly vetted, and then you browbeat people who oppose it and say, well, you're immoral, you're evil, you don't care about these wonderful refugees. Yeah, I care about the refugees. I also care about the homeless people right here in our town. I also care about people who are addicted or out of work here. We've got our own problems. We did not cause the crisis in Syria. The U.S. government did. So let them create safe zones. Let us take 1,000 refugees and pack them into Obama's neighborhood and Clinton's neighborhood. The Libyan refugees, they go to Clinton's neighborhood. Kick every goddamn person out of her neighborhood other than Hillary Clinton. Surround her with refugees and wall her in. Let her deal with it. She's rich. She can fucking fund them. Obama, he's responsible for Syria. Take 1,000 Syrian refugees, put them in his hometown around D.C. By the way, in D.C., I don't care if that hellhole does get filled with a bunch of terrorists. It already is anyway. Obama, he's a warmonger. Bush was a warmonger. They're all fucking warmongers. Give them the refugees. Hell, the crime rate's not going to rise anyway, no matter how violent people are, even if they're completely unvetted. Take a look at D.C. and their crime. South side of the D.C. area, yeah, it's a hellhole. It's like south side of Chicago or something. Or Highland Park. Or parts of Little Rock, some of those ghettoized neighborhoods there. It's fucked up. When did I do anything to Syria? I didn't do anything to fuck them up. I didn't do anything to kill any Syrians, destroy any of their homes. I never even supported Obama's crap. It was him who prolonged it so long that Assad ran out of targeted weapons, had to start using barrel bombs. Assad did not start the Syrian civil war. We've got this mythology in our heads that he just went nuts one day and decided to kill a few 100,000 of his own civilians and destroy an entire city in the process, degrading it to the point where it is literally nothing more than a ruin now in most parts of Aleppo. No, he didn't. He was perturbed into doing so. He's having trouble even partnered with Iran and Russia at the same time. While supposedly Jordan and France are also bombing ISIS in the area, you'd think it'd be easy for him. You know why it's not? Because Obama gave all sorts of cool weapons to these groups. ISIS got a hold of most of them. The FSA doesn't care about ISIS presence. They're too busy trying to assassinate Assad so that they can have their Sharia state. No, I don't support that at all. It's a terrible idea. Assad, while a dictator, while a pretty evil individual, is inarguably better than ISIS and inarguably better than the FSA that Obama himself gave all sorts of boatloads of money to. So when Christopher Loris tries to make this into a moral argument, why didn't you come out and start rambling about how bad the war was before we had this problem? Why didn't the Obamas and Clintons, who now pretend that it's some great moral crusade to take in millions of refugees, Merkel does the same, Hollande does the same, Cameron, all these people, they do the same thing. Why didn't they speak out before we fucked Syria up in the first place? Why were we even involved? It had nothing to do with us. They wanted to label it a humanitarian crisis. I'll bet anything. I'd bet bottom dollar that those chemical weapons that were deployed by the FSA. I bet anything it wasn't Assad that deployed them. Now, I think they wanted people to get involved further so they could drag us into another Iraq. I think that's what they wanted. Get us at odds with Russia, drag us into another never-ending war where we spend trillions of dollars occupying a bunch of desert. I think that's what they wanted. I think that's what ISIS and the FSA want. Unfortunately, people like Obama kind of wanted to give it to them. They had to conduct opinion polls to find out 80% of the population opposed the idea before Obama would even back off using targeted strikes on Assad's forces. And that's the point. He never suggested, oh yeah, I'm going to use targeted strikes on ISIS. No, he said, I'm going to take out Assad's fortifications. Bunch of morons. That's about all. Peace out.